We begin with NBC News White House correspondent Yamiche Alcindor, CNBC's senior economics reporter Steve Liesman, Reuters White House correspondent Jeff Mason, and Axios economics reporter Courtenay Brown. Welcome to you all. So, Steve, what stands out to you most from the jobs report?
Well, it's a good report, and it's always better to have a job number that beats expectations. There was some strength in a variety of places, including healthcare, a perennial place that we've had job growth. That was there. Financial activities, professional business services. Put that over on one side. On the other side, there were perhaps some signs of what is to come in the economy. For example, you pointed out that transportation and warehousing number up 29,000. Almost certainly that's going to go off if you correlate cargo or what's happening in the transportation business with jobs in that business. As that declines, the jobs in the business will decline. You also had a decline in retail, down just 1,000, but you could imagine that's a place where small businesses might be taking it on the chin from the tariffs. Manufacturing was down 1,000, and of course, federal government down 9,000. Some of that is not what's happening with, or what happened with DOGE may not be showing up for two reasons. One is that people got severance, so they don't show up as a job loss. The second one is that some of these jobs will be were restored by the courts. So that not necessarily a job loss right now. So there are signs to come of what may happen from the tariffs and the uncertainty that's out there in the economy. But right now, it's pretty good.
Okay. We'll take the good. That's fine. Better than expected jobs report. But let me add to the woes to consider, because we also saw this week the first GDP drop in 3 years, and consumer confidence has hit a 5-year low. So big picture, is the economy in a tariff-induced funk, or are we heading into a long-term slide?
So funk is an interesting word. I take that advisedly. I just wonder if it's more limbo right now. And the question I think we have to ask ourselves right now, the market has been on about a 9 or a 10-day winning streak here, as to whether or not it's rescuable. Maybe what I think this jobs number shows is that there has been some resilience to the to the economy. There is an ability to overcome some of the problems that are out there. I'm not uniformly negative on this. I'm uniformly worried, and I think there is some possibility to overcome it. But I think that's going to require the president to reverse these China tariffs and other really high tariffs pretty quickly. If that doesn't happen, I think for sure you're going to get a much worse May jobs report, and the GDP numbers will really start to reflect weakness in the economy.
Okay, so let's move, Yamiche, to the jobs report and China considering trade talks. I mean, both good news for the administration. In fact, there was even a rainbow over President Trump's Florida Golf Club after the jobs report came out. But overall, how's the White House reacting?
Well, the White House is calling this newest jobs report a boom, saying that it's a positive sign that they believe President Trump's economic plans, chaotic and inconsistent as they may be, are working for the American people. The president was also out today posting online. He said, in part, we're in a transition stage, just getting started. Consumers have been waiting for years to see pricing come down. No inflation. The Fed should lower its rates. And I should tell you, when I talk to White House officials, they do believe that the Fed cutting rates could help the economy. Of course, the president has been going after the Fed chair for a while now. But I also want to talk about the fact that this is all coming amid this escalating trade war, which is part of the reason why we're seeing prices fluctuate in these ways. Now, I want to read to you some of the statements that have come out that are really showing that there is some movement between the talks between China and the U.S. The National Security Council said today, we are in constant communications with Chinese officials through normal diplomatic channels. And then China's Ministry of Commerce also said if the U.S. wants to negotiate, it should show its sincerity by preparing to take actions in correcting its mistakes and canceling the unilateral tariffs. Now, of course, President Trump has been saying that he is in constant communication with Chinese officials, but Chinese officials have been pushing back, saying, no, that's not true, that there are no negotiations happening. And you can see in that statement, they're saying the U.S. needs to take more actions if they want to be at the negotiating table with China. The other thing I want to point out is that even if these negotiations do start in earnest, we have an idea for how long a trade deal could take. If we put it up for folks, 18 months to negotiate a trade deal is average, and 45 months to actually implement that trade deal. So what we're talking about here is long-term negotiations, but also this could be a long time before American consumers see some sort of relief and change in the tariff war here. Alex.
Wow, those are some stunning numbers right there. So I'm going to go to you now, Courtenay. So talk about the now closed loophole on low-priced Chinese goods, and particularly given what she was just reporting, Yamiche, what are U.S. consumers in for, and why was this in in there in the first place?
I think the Trump administration has had on its mind its idea to close this de minimis loophole, which allowed goods that were worth $800 or less into the country tariff-free. It is what they call a way to crack down on fentanyl. But I think when it comes to U.S. consumers, I think they very much see it as a direct attack on some of the retail items they can bring over from China for, reduced prices. Think about Shein, think about Temu. I mean, the orders from these companies from U.S. consumers have absolutely skyrocketed in recent years. And I want to point out, it's not just U.S. consumers. There are some businesses that bring goods over in small amounts. I'm talking about the smallest businesses, and they're affected by this too. So I think it's a little bit of a double whammy, hitting the consumer who's used to gorging on cheaper goods for China for clothing and other items, but also small businesses that are bringing in smaller amounts of inputs for products, whether they produce it here or not.
But Courtenay, if Yamiche's reporting is true, if that's what turns out to be correct, those numbers, 18 months to potentially negotiate with China, if it's already underway and getting going, which it doesn't appear to be yet, 45 months to implement the reduction of tariffs and turn everything around, that just means everybody's going to pay a lot more for the duration of this, right?
That assumes that President Trump or the White House does not blink. I know those numbers from Apollo are shocking. I spoke to a source who said that if you tally up how much time it would take for President Trump to negotiate bilateral trade deals with everyone on the reciprocal trade list, I mean, it's a long time. I think we heard Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent tell a reporter roundtable that I was sitting in a week ago that maybe tariffs can come down even if there aren't, fully formed trade deals. Maybe there is a framework of a deal that would allow tariffs to come down. But I think the big question is we don't know. And that's what's weighing on consumers. That's what's weighing on businesses.
All right, time to get to you now, my friend Jeff. So the president released his budget plan today. It is mostly a symbolic wish list. But what does it tell us about his economic priorities?
Well, a couple of things. It tells us that he wants to increase defense spending and he wants to reduce spending on things like childcare and other social programs. It's a blueprint for an action that he's actually already put into place, largely trying to codify some of the things that he has done with DOGE, the so-called Department of Government Efficiency, cutting out programs, cutting out funding for things that he does not support, but putting his money and his support behind defense and other areas that are very typically Republican wish list and Republican priorities. I do want to just tack back to your last question, though, if you'll let me, Alex, with regard to the trade talks, and this is, I guess, related to the budget in some ways as well. Yes, 18 months for negotiations with China or any country, that's a typical amount of time. But the president can decide today. The president can decide tomorrow that he wants to take those tariffs down. And that will have a almost immediate impact on financial markets and probably on the broader economy as well. It's the fact that the White House has decided that's not what it wants. It wants to have talks. It wants to have a deal with China that is, A, leading to this uncertainty and B, leading to this longer timeline. But it's the power is in the president's hands to make changes much quicker if he chose to do so.
And it might lift his poll numbers, Jeff, because just 36% of people approved of Trump's handling of the economy in the latest Reuters Ipsos poll. I mean, that is the lowest it has been in either of his administrations. Is it raising alarm bells inside the GOP?
It is. I mean, that's the GOP is keeping its eyes on the midterm elections, which seem like a long ways away. 2026, but it's not that far. People in Congress are already needing to start fundraising and thinking about their campaigns. So, yeah, the president's popularity and the president's policies absolutely have a down-ballot effect when it comes to Republicans running for re-election for the House, for the Senate, for the governorships, and for other races next year.
Courtney, this report shocked me. 25% of American families do not have the cash to buy basic food essentials. They are now turning to buy now, pay later programs at the grocery store. Are these loans as troubling to you as they are to me? I mean, if you're turning to them, does it suggest you have no other option?
I think what's really different about the 2020s versus the 2010s, when we saw the global recession in 2008, is we have all these new indicators that might suggest that the consumer is struggling, like buy now, pay later. I think we don't know. Is the consumer using buy now, pay later because they don't have the cash in their bank account, they don't have the cash on hand, or are they like me and they're using buy now, pay later because they're like, ooh, cool app? I think we don't know, but I do think it's troubling that there is an increase in the usage of these apps. And just given the macroeconomic backdrop that we know consumers are feeling the pinch from surveys and what have you, seeing that alongside an uptick in these apps, I mean, it's cause for concern.